Virginia, how are you? What do you do right now?
Ah,
And how is your workflow in Q1?
oh, those are many questions.
Yeah,
Let's
just
start
like
with.
overview of how are you and what are you up to right now?
Yeah, sure. Well, my name is Virginia. I'm a content designer currently. I
Mm-hmm.
transitioned from UX design to content design. I've been in this field for over 7 years. This is my year two of freelancing
Oh.
slash solopreneur slash business owner. There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
difference, I know. Uh,
Yeah.
so I'm still kind of between those terms. Um, and yes, like Q1 has been fantastic so far. I'm really happy.
Mm-hmm.
Really busy. So I kind of feel that I'm entering a new phase where I have to figure out fast how to kind of, organize my time and be more efficient. I think kind
Mm-hmm.
of, you have like, these ups and downs when you start, but then when you're like been this business on this side of business for a while, then you start getting a lot of work, and then you have to figure out how are you gonna handle that because obviously time is limited, and
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of the challenge for Q2 because right now it's
Yeah.
just like it's the end of Q1. So yes.
Yeah.
So this is inspired you for the today's topic, how to say, should you say as a freelancer or solopreneur like yes to every single project?
Yes, that was like very interesting. That I proposed that question because I kept reading like about how you should say no to projects. And I took a completely different approach because I left the corporate world,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt that in order for me to say no to projects, I needed to first say yes to a lot of stuff just to figure
Yeah.
out what I like, what I didn't like, how I feel doing certain things. So I took it as a personal challenge to do some sort of like a yes year.
Uh-huh.
Where I
Yeah.
basically say yes to pretty much everything that came my way. Um, and that was very interesting because I ended up learning so much about different fields, and I took projects where I didn't feel as confident as at the beginning. But then I thrive on those,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of discover things that I really enjoy. So I think it was a very positive experience overall.
Mm-hmm.
And not many people talk about these things, and there's a lot of focus on the no part, and I get it. I mean, you have to kind of set your boundaries on those,
Mm.
but I think at the beginning, especially when you're transitioning from the corporate world, it's
Yeah.
really important just to kind of go through that phase of
Yes.
exploring, you know.
Yes. When I started in 2022, I remembered, I don't know if Kat remembers, there was like a lot of talk about niching down and you should be a specialist. You have to niche down, you have to pick your industry. And I'm like, how? I'm just now
Yeah.
going to explore and see what I like you said, and see for myself what is for me and what is not for me. How can I say no to projects that I don't have experience in, but I really want to try, for example? Why would I? Because I said on a piece of paper for example, that I want to be, I don't know, UX designer only for banking or something like that. And it's just like, doesn't make sense. Like, why would you do that?
Hmm.
Yeah, I think your niche has to kind of come naturally. Like, as you say, work on many projects and see what fits a bit better. I mean, for
Mm-hmm.
me, I've found that the niche is not necessarily like in a field of work or something like this. It's kind of like different things about the type of client or like what
Exactly.
stage they are at their business. And there's no way I would have known that if I'd said no to like random projects. So yeah, I think it's such a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
Are you thinking that you've done the like yes for 1 year to like figure it out and then you might start niching down, or what's your future? What are you thinking now for the future?
Yeah, I think I'm still kind of because I'm a very curious person, and I tend to kind of accept like new projects because of that, because there's a certain appeal of exploring new things. So I keep saying yes to things that I was like, okay, I decided not to say yes, and I'm just keep saying yes to these things. Uh, but yes, I think I'm that stage of starting to specialize.
Mm.
but I'm being flexible with myself instead of the niching down thing. Like I'm not constraining myself to a very specific line of business. I think content design is already quite niche. And it took me some time to figure that out because I kept reading like kind of the whole niching down is everywhere. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought that content design was not enough. I just had to
Uh-huh.
keep niching down, and at some point it's like, no, I just don't. At the moment, I just don't want to work only with banking or, I just want to do content design for different type of industries because I
Mm-hmm.
think that benefits me, but benefits my clients as well. Because when you kind of, from my perspective, when you end up working in a very focused, specific field, you kind of get lost
Mm.
with what's going on outside that bubble.
Exactly.
And I think you can incorporate to your designs or to your content or to your work, to your process, to everything,
Yeah.
all you learn from different kind of fields because you will
The
get new
ideas.
experiences and new ideas and new ways
Yeah.
of working. So, but for some time I was like, you get obsessed with the whole niching down because you think you're doing it wrong. But then I realized, well, this is actually the way I'm doing things at the moment is working and getting clients. I'm okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing to fix here.
Yeah.
I like kind of keep doing what you're doing, and then later on I might get there. But so far it's just content design right now is just my niche.
Yeah. Yeah, if it's working, then keep
Yeah,
going.
exactly.
So would you say that you haven't declined the project yet?
Sorry again.
Would you say that you haven't declined any projects yet?
I decline projects based on unrealistic expectations, I
Mm.
would
Oh,
say, like
okay.
when you get like I know clients and when they what they proposing, this not it's not possible, with the
Mm-hmm.
time frame and then you have to learn to communicate that, like, with what you're asking and the time frame you're proposing. This is as far as I can go in terms of, of the quality that I want to deliver and the results that you want. That
Mm-hmm.
type of situations I've been there, but not as many as I thought I would be. So, you know, like people usually are open just to to figure things out with you. So,
Yeah.
but yes, I haven't, I mean, I don't think I've say no to any project so far. Like,
Mm. Yeah,
yeah.
I found that also that when you then explain that, okay, this is not really possible and it's not ideal to try and do this in a short amount of time or maybe for like that small budget,
Mhm.
then I found that clients sort of change their mind or then they be understanding. Um,
Yeah.
for me, I've kind of declined projects or like advised for the client to do other things if I think they're not ready for like, let's say, paying for a full
Mhm.
website. There's someone that I spoke to a few weeks ago that she has a really good idea, but she's just not there yet to
Mm-hmm.
like invest in this. And I'm like, I'm saying no because it's better for you. Like, I don't suggest that you pay me this much because it's gonna, you're not ready.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
especially when clients don't have like certain steps figured out beforehand. For example, their service offer, like what are you offering? Like if you're not clear about that, like value propositions that you have and the copy, you don't have even your branding like fully figured out and polished. It's like in
Mm,
web design we're talking right now.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
like why would I charge you for a website that will just look like any other website and wouldn't resonate with your goals and
mm,
ideas and your plans in the future. It just like doesn't make sense. But would you tell us maybe some stories about how you have said no, but in the end it ended up to be a yes, like with this kind of situations?
Well, I think like I realized that if you're really open and honest from the beginning, those
Mm-hmm.
situations kind of figure out, as Kat was saying, I've said no to like trying to explain you're not there yet. This is not like, I know I can design the website, but it's not gonna be,
mm,
what you're looking for, or I can just help you with this with the content, but it's just there's so much that needs to happen beforehand. and there's like kind of this conversation happening that is really interesting. And when people get that feedback, like I know this person is actually losing business telling me this, there's like
Mm-hmm.
this set of kind of certain trust that is built
Mm.
right there. And they're more open just to get guidance. And I had these situations where like, I'm okay, this is a no for now.
Mm-hmm.
And I could offer, doing this work first if you're up to it. Uh, and they might have say, okay, I need to think about it. And they will come back, in
Yeah.
like in a couple of months later and say, okay, now I can feel I'm ready, let's do this. So I think there's a lot of fear about being open and having this type of conversations, like how can I gonna say no to do a website, or how can I. But then if you actually, it's just a way of compromising your work as well if you say
Mm-hmm.
yes.
Yeah.
So I think when you're open and you're clearly kind of articulating that, that's what they don't need, and that's, it opens a door for them instead of closing,
Yeah.
the deal. So
I think it really shows your professionalism as well and builds a lot of trust. So even if they don't work with you in the future, then you have kind of put the, well, how do you say, like put the place in their mind
yeah,
that they're like, oh, she's a trustworthy business owner. Like she respects her clients as well. It's not just trying to get fast cash. Um, yeah, no, I think it's really good.
yeah.
Um, before, I wanted to ask specifically, what is content design? Like, what is it that you do?
Yes, that's a million-dollar question.
Yeah.
So content design, that's how it's called nowadays. It's been called, well, like we are really bad within UX naming things, I have to say. We have a big problem with that.
Yeah.
Um, but yes, like basically, content design is um, a way to present information online, a way to present information on screen to be consumed and to um, convert and connect with the audience, I would say. So it's not about just content or design separately. It's a way to
Mm-hmm.
balance both. And user experience has been evolving so much and get to a point where they realize that they cannot be done separately.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So I think that's what attracted me from the field. And when you kind of start designing just to figure out that the design part is not only, what makes an impact. The words
Mm.
that are displayed on screen have a role too, and they need to work together. Otherwise,
Yeah,
it's not kind of getting through the screen, you
Yeah.
yeah,
know.
definitely.
Can
I
you
think
give us, sorry.
I think I noticed the same like when I transitioned into web design because I was a UX designer before and I thought that websites, yeah, it would just be UX. And then I was like, oh my God, the copy is so important.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed on your LinkedIn that you have like UX designer who writes. That's like
Yeah.
one of your job titles. Did you have experience writing before, or is it something that you've learned now?
Well, I mean, I love to write. That's why I kind of transitioned to content design. I've been writing all my life. But then it was just a natural progression because nowadays you get like separate roles within companies, but
Mm-hmm.
like not so long ago, UX design would do everything. The roles that I had in companies, you would just call yourself UX designer, but then you would do research, you would do the writing stuff, you would do, the usability aspect, the UI, you would
Mm-hmm.
do everything. And then during projects, I always ended up involved heavily in the content aspect of it. And that's why I discovered like kind of, the psychology aspect of how writing a certain way can impact the way your message gets through the screen. And I was just completely like fascinated by it.
Mm-hmm.
So then throughout the years, I would just like be very specific when I was in companies, just picking like, that part of the projects. So, and then from there, I was like, when I decided just to go solo, I was like, this is what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because I realized there was like a huge gap. And there was like this time where UX, we were in that phase where being a generalist, it was not so demanded. Everyone wants a specialist.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, this is it for me. It's the right fit.
And for those of the listeners who cannot imagine what is content design, can you give us some kind of example that maybe they can visualize or can be like, aha, okay, I have seen that before. I know what it is.
Well, basically, it's just every piece of content that you read online.
Mm-hmm.
It can cover from like if it's very UX specific, like there's like this side of content design that is called UX writing, which is like the text that goes in buttons, the text that appears on error messages.
Mm-hmm.
When you open an app for the first time, the onboarding screens, those intro screens that will tell
Yeah.
you how to use the app, the microcopy, those little pieces of text that appears on forms when you're
Mm-hmm.
typing your password wrong.
Yeah.
The menus, um, how is the information display? I think this is not kind of, it's quite underestimated,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a lot of work behind the way the information is displayed on the screen, like the way a menu is designed, what options will go on a menu when you land on a website, for example,
Mm-hmm. The timing.
or yes, exactly, or how the information is going to be shown, like kind of, there's like a difference between, the headers from the body
Mm-hmm.
text. So I would say those would be like in reality, it's just content design covers every type of copy that appears on the screen. Yeah.
Interesting. I find it so interesting, error
Yeah.
messages and stuff like that. And I
Yeah.
hate it when it's done badly. Like if a website tells me like you did an error, but it doesn't tell me how to resolve it or like what the error is. Oh my God, I get so angry.
Yes, yes. I
What
think
is
it's just with UX, it's just it happens with design. Like kind of it's a
mm,
field that is really hard to explain because when it's done good, you don't notice it.
Yeah,
But
you
yeah,
if
don't,
it's done
exactly.
badly,
you can feel it.
you can feel it.
Yeah,
Exactly. So yes.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
Is there a difference between a UX writer and a content designer? Or do they have overlaps or
Well, that's the big discussion. Uh, it depends on who you ask.
okay.
Yeah, but I think the content designer has a more strategic role. It goes a bit over,
Deeper.
a
Mm-hmm.
go deeper, yes, at the moment. But I mean, that's the talk within the industry, when you
Mm-hmm.
kind of get hired, there's like a lot of UX writers that are content designer as well, and the other way
Mm-hmm.
around, like kind of usually there's like only very specific companies will be having those roles separate.
Yeah.
So at the end, it just happens the same with the UX. You can have the UX and there's UX/UI. There's like some companies they would have, you know what I
Yeah. Yeah.
mean?
UX
So
designer
yes.
who codes and knows marketing and copy
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
and
yeah,
everything.
Wizards,
exactly.
unicorns, everything,
Yeah,
everything.
10
Yes,
euros
yes,
an hour.
yes, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Or I saw post yesterday, you will be not paid for the first 2 months until you're being assessed or something like that. But I think it was for marketing role. And then if both sides are satisfied, we will hire you or something like that. I'm like, what a joke. What
Two
a joke.
months. It's crazy. Yeah. I saw
Yeah.
one the other day also that was like the monthly range was from
Yeah.
2,000 to 10,000 per month. And I'm like,
Uh-huh.
that's a huge difference. Like that doesn't say anything.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, it's like let's put something here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned also that, as you said, we are all under the umbrella of the UX and it's huge and there's so many disciplines that can be specialized in. But how do you decide what to include in your process as a content designer?
Well,
Right.
I think like kind of from there's a lot of the process that I used to include as a designer that I also include as a content designer because
Mm-hmm.
the basic of it, the research part, the strategy part, the
Mm-hmm.
empathy part, all of these design thinking methods, they are there, like it's just they have so much in common. It's just I think it's the outcome that is different, the outcome
Mm-hmm.
in design is just visual and the content design is if it's visual as well, but it's just from the perspective of words, instead of kind of graphics.
Mm.
But the skills I didn't have any issues transitioning from one to the other because the foundation is just the same. You need just to
Mm-hmm.
do your research. You need to know your audience. You need to know the user behavior side of things. So those remain the same, which I think it was really came in handy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, a lot of the design process, I think, across things are kind of similar. Like you have a problem, you do the research, find a solution, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I know that you've worked in like bigger companies, startups, and then also now you're self-employed. Do you see a difference in like your process and how you work across those three? And
Well, I think the process is the same. It's
Mhm.
just a matter of the speed,
Yeah,
I
okay.
would say, and the flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
When you work on a big company, you have like a huge process, like internal processes in place,
Mhm.
and that affects the way you work. Definitely, there's a lot of this decision makers that you have to deal with, um, and that actually delays the process, and sometimes some of the process is skipped completely.
Yeah.
That happens as well in startups, but for other reason, entirely. It's because there's no time. In startups, it's just like you just jump and just do kind of, you do stuff and then you don't get to almost think about anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then as a solo, I think that was the refreshing part that you actually get to focus on the process uh, because you're the one owning it. You're the designer and the copywriter, but then you're the CEO and the project manager, and then you get to
Everything.
this
Yeah.
decision is like, I'm gonna give you the space to do, the process, which is really, really nice. But I think the process is the same. It's just a matter of the environment that defines
Yeah.
kind of how it's gonna be. Mm.
And as a bilingual, how do you choose your next content client? Is it going to be in Spanish? Is it going to be in English? How do you prioritize and decide?
Well, this is a funny story because I studied abroad.
Mm-hmm.
I moved to Scotland to study
Yeah, you
digital
mentioned.
interaction design because there was nothing like that in Spain, and
Mm-hmm.
and then all my working experience was in English, and then I moved back to Spain, and I decided just to go solo, and I was like, okay, like there's not a lot going on the Spanish side. I might be, started creating content and creating my personal brand and, start kind of working with Spanish clients. And it was a struggle. And then I tried for some time and I had clients, but it was not working because there's like a huge gap still kind of in Spain in terms of UX awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up, in that position that I was like many years ago of trying just to, advocate and
Uh-huh.
defend the field. And, that kind of, they were like so unaware of what I could just bring to the table that it was just too difficult. And then I switched to English. And the funny thing is that the moment I started publishing content and building my whole brand,
Mm-hmm.
English, Spanish clients start
They were
coming
like,
as from
yeah,
another level,
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
big companies. But
Ah.
in like Spain, I was like, oh my God, this is like
yeah.
like
They
irony of this.
Yeah, because it's like something like they cannot touch, and they're like, we want that now, we
Yes,
can see it now
yes,
how it works, right?
yes, exactly. I was like, I was creating the exact content, in another language, and you're coming now.
Yeah.
It's so funny, but I have. I've been lucky because I really wanted to work with Spanish client because obviously
Mm-hmm.
native language and I didn't have the chance to do it until now. And I just, I wanted just to do it. Um, so I'm working with Spanish client, but all for international projects.
Okay.
So all the projects that I'm working on, like I think 80% of them are in English.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's like a small percentage of projects that I get to work in Spanish, which is kind of really exciting because
Yeah.
obviously it's a different thing just to write in one language than in another. There's like the nuances are really
Mhm.
Yeah.
interesting. And
And
you're a different type of writer, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Which one is more fun for you though, to write in English or in Spanish?
Hmm. Well, I think it depends. I think it depends on the I think it kind of joy depends on the voice, I would say, not kind of the language,
Mm.
kind of the tone of voice, the brand's voice, I think is what determines what kind of, I'm currently working with a big brand. The brand voice is just very, like fun and creative and ongoing, and
Mm-hmm.
I get to make jokes in the
Okay.
content, and that's really fun, just to work with brands that want to kind of speak human. I use that
Mm.
over LinkedIn, but I think it's
Yeah.
just as the key, just brands are kind of starting just to figure out that they need to write in a different kind of way to get to their audiences. And it's not always they need just to be fun and outgoing, it just
Mm-hmm.
has to be more conversational and
Yeah.
not being from like this
Yeah.
point of view. So I think that's the part that I'm enjoying the most, just to see that transformation happening like from the inside.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I love what you said about because there's different levels, right? It's like the UX maturity of a company, then it's like the cultural aspect, as in
Mhm.
like
Mm-hmm.
location, and then there's also the type of company. Like if it's a big company or a startup or anything, like there's so many different levels to how you can work with something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. Do you
Yeah.
see like any kind of pros and cons for each of these, or what do you prefer?
Well, I think like the pros of the multinationals, I would say, is just the environment. You get to work with people from different backgrounds and from different cultures, and you learn so much from that. You learn about how people kind of, the work ethic and how people deal with conflict that is really different. Like the cultural
Mhm.
part kind of plays a big role there.
Yeah.
And it's really fun just to be part of something so big. It's just,
Mhm.
but the cons obviously is the politics. Like it's such a big part, especially when you are creative. It's something that can it can lead to burnout really fast,
Yeah.
having to deal with that because it sometimes constrains so much your process and your ability to work that it's just hard to navigate. Um, and then for the startups, I think, it just the learning experience is just there's no environment like that.
Mm.
There's no onboarding, there's nothing. You just cross the door and you just like start
Thrown in the
working.
deep end.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's fun because you get to talk. You need to be very proactive. You need to talk to everyone just to figure
Mm-hmm.
things out.
Transparent.
And yes, it's just you need just to kind of be quick and the whole making decisions quicker when you coming from the multinational where you can just, one
Yeah.
decision can take months. It's
Yeah.
Mm.
just a completely different thing. But then the startup is almost like it's someone's baby, in a
Mm-hmm.
way.
Yeah.
It's an idea that someone had and they put all the effort and all the savings and everything. And then
Mm-hmm.
getting into that sometimes it's difficult when you have to say, okay, this might be better done in this
Yeah.
way
Yeah.
because
And it's
there's
not
it's
working.
yeah, because it's personal for them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think from if I put on the startup founder kind of, shoes, that might be like really, really hard just to navigate, just
Yeah.
to grow your company, but it's your company, and I
Yeah.
think that's really tough.
And,
So
spe
yeah.
and especially hard to convince startup founders who are, like you said, very attached to their
Yeah.
idea, and especially if they are building it first for themselves
Mm-hmm.
and later for other people. That's,
Yeah.
I think, where the issue starts when they start to create it for their own benefit instead of rather focusing on solving a problem and targeting the users and
Mm-hmm.
listening to their output and feedback and then creating the idea in the company around that. So
Mm-hmm.
I think as a outsider or as a part of the team, as a designer, it's so hard to like give reason to suggest something and to say like, okay, this is not working. We either have to change direction or we have to reconsider this feature or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
especially because when you say that, it's gonna, it's gonna affect the person.
Yeah.
it's a different thing that when you're in a multinational that is, I mean, it's going to affect goals and KPIs and everything, and then you have to
Mm-hmm.
take those into consideration. But on the startup, you're touching the emotional part of it,
Yeah.
and then it's just okay. Yeah, it's really tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have here on the notes something that I wanted to ask you about,
Okay.
like a challenge. You are curious, you like challenges, but how is it Threads challenge going for you? Because I also ended up in a group on what was it called, school platform, and
Okay.
I was
Oh.
very interested of the 100 days of Threads or whatever, or 1,000 followers of in a month or whatever the challenge was. But I was like, this is not working for me. I cannot do it. It's like too much pressure. I cannot think on demand. I either have the idea or I don't. And I just wondering how do you find yourself creating content for your brand on that platform?
It's really, it's really not working. Uh, I would say, I mean, I'm enjoying it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I kind of found it at the beginning of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, this is perfect because I've been looking at Thread for a while because I mean social media, I love social media.
Mm-hmm.
I mean some parts obviously don't, but in general, kind of, I've been in social media for years and Twitter has been, some like has played like a huge role. But I no longer use Twitter. So Threads was the kind of the most similar kind of platform.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of have a love-hate relationship with Instagram. So I was like,
Don't we
Don't
all?
we all?
like, like, let's not go there.
Yeah, we
So
can, but
I was really not sure about the whole thing. And I mean, I'm putting so much effort on LinkedIn, and I'm working, and I was like, how I'm gonna handle,
Mm.
like, are you sure? Uh, I was like, okay, let's go. And then January was a disaster. I couldn't keep up, and it was just so funny because it's just the kind of challenge is only just to, I think it's just to post 2 or 3 times, but I mean, posts in threads are not like, they're just like a couple of lines. I mean, you can go longer, but usually it's just a couple of lines.
yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm not even able to do this. Like, this is bad. So I
Mm.
was like, okay, I'm not gonna do it. And then on February, I was like, okay, let's give this a try. Um, but then I was really relaxed. I was like, I'm gonna just start posting whatever because
Mm-hmm.
Threads is just such a special platform. No one has it figured out. Basically, everyone is just posting like very specific content, but then suddenly, like, I know, what did you have for breakfast type of style. Everyone is
Yeah, yeah.
figuring it out. So I was like, I will do that too. Um, and then I didn't want to focus on getting engagement, because I didn't want to go through that, phase of I'm not getting any comments, that kind of,
Mm-hmm.
it's just really tough. So I was like, I'm gonna post just for the sake of posting,
Mm-hmm.
just for myself. So most of the time, I'm just doing the opposite of what I do, for a living. I'm posting for myself instead of for an audience
Yeah.
because I just want to just to see and try how the platform works.
Mm-hmm.
And that I'm enjoying, and I'm enjoying the most that I'm enjoying is just commenting. I mean,
Yeah.
I love
I
that
see you.
because I don't have to kind of think about anything, I'm
Yeah.
just so strategic in every aspect of my life at the moment. I have to be strategic for my clients, I have to be strategic for my business, I have to be strategic for LinkedIn. So I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm not gonna have a strategy. That's gonna be my strategy here. Like, I know, okay, I'm just gonna just
Have
go through
fun.
the feed and answer.
Yeah.
And that is actually what's working in from for
Mm.
me. I'm just, you know, not focusing on the goal of getting X amount of followers or X amount of comments, or just being very specific with my content. Because I realize that every time I just put like content that is about content design, like no one
Mm-hmm.
cares.
No one cares
Basically,
there.
no
Yeah,
one cares.
absolutely.
And it's
Absolutely.
not only just my problem in a way, it's that no one wants to read, that type of
Mm-hmm.
content on threads.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm.
think people are still defining what they want threads for.
Yeah. I
Because I
think
can
it's
see like kind of super big influencers from LinkedIn and from other platforms are
mm-hmm.
using threads just to, I just had coffee.
Yeah, Threads is
So it's like,
literally
okay.
mini podcast
So no one
platform
is
just
being
for writing.
strategic, I think, in a way.
Yeah.
So that's fun. But I mean, I'm just trying to follow the challenge, but I'm not very like kind of strict about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I just realized that I just didn't want to fall on the trap of trying just to, set goals. Oh, I need to get this amount
Yeah.
of followers or this amount of engagement, and I need to track what's working and what's not. I mean, I already do that with LinkedIn, and
Mhm.
that's a lot of work. So I just needed just to have something on social media that it was not so business
Yeah,
Iterate. Yeah.
like more
specific.
fun, more casual.
Yeah.
Do you think that Threads then in the long run will be good for growing your business in terms of like getting clients or like building your personal brand? Or what do you, aside from enjoying it and making that content, like do you see that it will become strategic for your business?
I think at the end, like the platform will kind of, yeah, I
Mm,
can see it already kind of shifting towards that.
okay.
Um, because it's just the whole personal brand is so huge and it's blooming. I mean, like
Mm,
everywhere in every platform. It's happening in Substack as well. And it's happening in so many every social platform is just turning into that. So I think maybe that's the reason why people are just like posting random thoughts. Because
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone is just
yeah.
enjoying it while it
Yeah.
lasts,
I
I
you
think
think.
know?
we're so kind of nosy as a community that like
Mm-hmm.
these random thoughts for people or like what they did today or like something that made them angry, I'm like, ooh, like it's so interesting because it's like we're so used to everything being polished and, prepared that this is just so fun and
Yeah,
nice.
and you
Yeah.
can say like you can tell by like the type of threads that go viral
Mm.
that there's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of jokes about that, but it's true. Like there's like a picture of a random box and it's just getting like kind of
Yeah,
the
thousands.
type of engagement is like what?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think there's
It's
like a
just like.
lesson for everyone there, for like maybe we're like too focused on polished content and
Mm-hmm.
being always like on the, as a personal brand, but being completely like kind of focused on the kind
Mm.
of business aspect of it that whenever someone posts a a photo of a box, everyone goes like bananas.
Yeah. It's it's much more raw and like a suitable platform for just networking, just to have
Yeah.
fun and to see who your people are. And through the platform, I already connected on Instagram and on LinkedIn with other people who are
Mm,
like interested in
yes.
similar things, or just hate the same platform, or they like a different platform. And it's just like an extension to see like, oh, this is someone who I might have something with, like either collaboration or just chat, or maybe even some kind of work exchange or whatever.
Mm.
But it is I think Threads is whatever you want it to be.
Yeah.
It can be that journal, it can be that influencer type of content, it can be also educational, it can be silly memes and like putting your first drafts about the content. I see that for a lot of creatives in our industry. Like we have like a huge community. You and Joel, I think, and Joel, and it's like all of us. We first write there. Okay, this is performing well. We're gonna make a carousel. We're gonna make a video of this, and it just like
Yeah.
snowballs into something bigger and more professional and polished afterwards.
Yeah. Do you think
Mm.
you're gonna be end up using it as well as a way to promote your business, or are you gonna keeping it like on the
I do
like
mix. I do
like a
mix.
mix? Yeah.
Yeah, I do mix. I try to also post carousels there, and I try to see what is more interesting, but mostly opinions and achievements. I see that that makes the most success there because people are genuinely happy for other people
Yeah.
getting progress. And whenever you have series or a journey to follow, I think this is like skyrocketing in every social media at the moment. Like if you have like, um, okay, I have made like 1,000 euros in January and 2,000 in February, and this is how I made it, or what I encountered and what I like faced in that time period. It's just like all people are living for the stories and the journeys of other people and successes. And even when someone has trouble on threads, they're willing to help or troll in the comments, which is also fun. So
Yes.
it's just like a huge mix of everything, and I love it.
Yes, yes.
Mm.
I've been enjoying it so far as well. Yes, I've been thinking about, just keeping it really simple and just sharing like, those kind of small things. I really like the whole thing about sharing the process because I
Mm-hmm.
don't get to share that much over LinkedIn at the moment. And I think it's really nice because I've been enjoying that part of threads as well. Like I know people just showing the process and where they get stuck and where they're making progress. And
Yeah.
so that kind of building public in a way, but not so
Mm-hmm.
structured, just like, okay, this is what's happening today. That's it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
throwing it out there. Yeah, that's really fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. I want to go back to something you said earlier on, going back to the negative part,
Yeah.
please understand part, unfortunately. You mentioned burnout, and I wanted
Yeah.
to ask, because you can experience burnout in like the bigger companies, the startups, and like working for yourself. Have you experienced it? And what advice would you give to other people working in these situations to avoid it? Like, is
Yeah.
there anything you do in your business to avoid it?
Yeah. I think it's like I had this conversation so many times with other kind of creatives, especially. Burnout I mean, it's so real, and
Mm,
especially like in corporate world. And I've been through it, and at some point I was like, okay, was like maybe this is not, I should not be doing UX design.
Mm.
I should be doing something like, because at the end, like I know, especially for this type of field, the constant defense and advocacy of, they hire you for doing that, and then you have to justify why they hire you in the first place, and that is so tough. It's just like
yeah.
it's just, your mind is just, you end up in meetings and you have to propose design, but at the same time having to defend, the entire
Yeah.
UX.
You become a
Like,
lawyer.
Yeah.
exactly. It's like there's like this double role that you have to play, and at the beginning I kind of have to confess that I was really excited because I'm kind of an idealist. And I mean I really believe in the UX. That's why I kind of, I'm really passionate about the field,
Hmm.
because I really want to make, technology easy to use. Um, so that for me, it was like, okay, I'm gonna just, talk about this as many times as I need to be, because I really believe that this can be an impact for the business and for the users. But at some point, it gets really tiring. And and especially as we discussed before, when you get, your process gets so much constrained, and then I've talked about this before. I don't know if I talk about it on over content, but you end up chasing deadlines, and you
Yeah.
get trapped in that, like, the next deadline, instead of executing a vision. And that for a creative person is lethal.
Mm,
You
that's really
know,
interesting. Like
that's
focusing on the
really bad.
small tasks rather than like the overall goal is,
Yes.
yeah, it's not really fulfilling either.
Yes, you get kind of, you get lost on on that, instead of, you lose focus on what you're doing in the first
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
And that gets really tough, especially for kind of this type of field where you are, the user, you're representing the user within the company. You're
Yeah.
Mm.
the only one, that is just asking every time in every meeting, like, kind of, what's the user gonna think about this? Like, have
Exactly.
you
Hmm.
thought about the user?
Yeah.
Hmm.
You're the only one from so that gets really tough. So I went through the burnout. But then I had to kind of, in my case, what it helped me. Well, now I'm a solopreneur, but I kind of, the irony is just that most of my clients are multinationals, but because I work from outside, it's a completely different thing.
Mm,
Because then I get, the flexibility of the process is there. So I kind of got rid of the stuff that I didn't like about the corporate. But for me, what was important is to get back to my why I was doing UX in the first place. I
Hmm.
think that's what kind of got me through it. and ask myself, do I really want to do this? Is it something that I kind of want to pursue because I enjoy it? Or is it no longer, a passion? It might be, something
Yeah.
that I could just do as a hobby and then just do something else for a living. Or do I really want to pursue this? I think that was like a very tough conversation that I had to kind of had with myself. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but then that really helped me, and then when I realized that, this is the reason why I started, and this is what I want to do, and this is like my own battle, just to make this impact through small
Mm.
things.
Yeah.
That's what gonna help me through burnout. And then it was a question of, okay, what can I do about it? If I cannot work in corporate at the moment, what other options are there for me? So I kind of had the chance to work for startups and just try that kind of side of things. And then I just went solo because I just needed just to do that. I needed to try that for myself. And now that I'm working for multinationals, because I have like this mindset of I'm doing this, I have like this why as a focus point for myself, then I can
Mm-hmm.
handle, the politics aspects and all the kind of struggle that I had earlier in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I think at some point we all need to have that conversation, because when you start in a field, you're a completely different person than right now.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
been 7 years. A
Checkpoints.
lot of stuff has happened. COVID has happened,
Yeah.
and then you're in a different place, and then you might be, it's okay. It's like you don't have to do this if it's no longer fulfilling.
Exactly.
Mhm.
You might go into the, completely different specialization or, completely different discipline. I kind of met
Mm-hmm.
UX designer who have been gone through to development and the other way around, or just
Mm-hmm.
they're doing baking, It's like
Yeah. Yeah.
there's actually a lot of, digital professionals that they go into,
Baking.
baking or just manual things. It's just really interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I think we had it in the last episode with Kat where we were like sharing how we sometimes on a monthly, sometimes on a daily, we think about changing careers and like running the business down, closing everything and just starting over with something fresh and new because sometimes the brain gets tired of all the constant routine and dynamic of repeating the same process over and over again and
Mm,
not really seeing the results that you want to see in the end because we have like this ideal of like how a product or a process should look like, but then in the end we compromise and we trim certain processes, certain
mm.
things that we want to offer, and we ended up with something half baked as we wanted it to be, and it's just like, okay, we will put it there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I always I also struggle with the fact that, like, as kind of define myself at the beginning, freelancers slash
Mm.
solopreneurs,
Mm-hmm.
because there's like a huge kind of stage between freelancing and owning your business, and that side
Mm-hmm.
of that is just that can lead to burnout as well.
Oh
You
yeah.
might want us to do projects, but then you don't want to run a business, or you don't
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
want to be kind of taking care of that part of things on, and that's really tough transition just because there's so much that you need to learn about running
Mm-hmm.
a business, and then you just want to build your own brand and do kind of build the whole thing from the ground. But then it's like, okay, I need to figure so many
Yeah.
things out. And there's a lot of, and there's
Gaps.
not enough
Yeah.
time. And at the beginning, you cannot delegate because it's not sustainable. And
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
and it's like you end up like, okay, so whatever. Like I want to be going solo, but then it's just there's so many
Yeah.
things to juggle. Yeah. Yeah, it's really tough. Yeah.
Yeah, I've met quite a few kind of designers, developers who have been working freelance for the last few years, and now they've got a job again. Because I think, as you say, like it's just so many
Yeah.
things to do, and the way that like content or like marketing is going nowadays, I think you
Mm-hmm.
have to be um aware, sorry, what's the word? On basically all platforms. Like you need
Yeah.
to be posting content like almost daily on like maybe 2 or 3 platforms. And this, like a few years ago, it wasn't like this. Like I was easily just on Instagram posting maybe 3 times a week. Now I'm posting on Instagram and LinkedIn every day, and it's still not enough. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's just changing and it's getting so much more stressful. So I completely understand why people would prefer to get a job instead of having to do everything. Like if you're not really passionate about all the other stuff, then
Mhm.
yeah, just you want to design.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And to maybe wrap up a little bit, we can ask you for some UX writing improvements that anyone can make, maybe?
Mm.
Yes. I love that question.
It's a good question. Yeah.
Yeah, good
Yeah.
question.
I
I
will take
think,
notes.
yeah, I think there's two that you're gonna like, Kat, like, because I think you mentioned them like not so long ago in your content. These are very simple, but they're still an issue, and I just don't know what to do because I keep repeating this on posts and people just like text size. Text size is a huge issue, and it's just people kind of are still kind of creating content that is too small because they, I think,
Mm-hmm.
they're still creating content for desktop when the majority of users are seeing your content or seeing your website or seeing your social media on the phone, and the text size is still too small. So I
Mm.
think that's the quickest fix, and it has huge impact. So that would be my first one. And then the second one is contrast.
Mm.
Contrast is just the difference between the background
Yeah.
color and your font color. Um, and if it's too much or too little, the basic, because it could be both,
Mm.
Yeah.
basically it's just your text doesn't get read. And it then doesn't matter how good your content is, it's not gonna work. And those are still kind of, I see it on Canva templates every day. I see it on websites every single day. I see it on carousels. It's just, you know, it's
Mm.
such a shame because they're really quick fixes and the impact is enormous. So I think those two are always my go-to quick fixes. Then I would add, if we go to more UX writing specifics,
Mm-hmm.
I would say try to get rid of the click here, read more
Mm.
text for buttons. I think
Mm-hmm.
there's many missing opportunities on buttons. Buttons, we need just to take, we need to think about buttons as decisions, not as
Mm-hmm.
just buttons, like buttons that will take you to the next place. And to do that, you need to tell them where you're taking that person to.
Okay.
And it has to be, so it's a completely different thing just to say, click here that um, start your free trial now.
Yeah. Can you
It's a
give better
completely different
example?
thing.
Mm.
So, I mean, if you need to just to keep it short
Mm-hmm.
and to keep it actionable, so always include a verb. Verbs
Okay.
are amazing just to kind of ignite action
Yeah.
Mm.
and talk to the person. Like, kind of, there's been tests done about this. Like, if you just include,
The
uh,
person, yeah.
yeah, the person there, like, kind of the pronoun, it's just it
Mm-hmm.
will kind of the impact in the click rate
Exactly,
is
yeah.
kind of is monumental. So, but especially kind of try just to kind of explain what's gonna happen next.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
People need to know when they click on the button where they're gonna land next.
Mm-hmm.
And that's such a
Mm.
missing opportunity at the moment. And it just breaks the completely experience. Like if you compare like click here to start my trial, it's a completely different thing. With click here, you're only just saying this is a
Mm.
button that can be clicked.
Yeah.
That's it. There's no
Yeah.
information whatsoever or what's in it for me, what's in it for your business. There's nothing. And
Yeah.
there's so many. Click here and read more is still kind of is such a shame. Yeah.
Yeah. I think when I'm feeling lazy, I sometimes do it also. So,
Yeah.
but now I have a list of how to fix it. So thank you.
I mean, I can understand. I mean, like there's buttons like on blogs that you
Mm.
can see the read more there, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
but especially on e-commerce I can see them like later on, like on landing pages for services, and it's like, why click here, like click here to do
Yeah.
what? Like tell me that there's such a great opportunity just to talk to the other person,
Mm-hmm.
it's a shame. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder, do you, it just came as an idea of a question now. Do you maybe have like a folder with your your favorite like content copy that you have gathered, like your Mount Rushmore that they call it in America, with like the best copies that you ever found?
I'm actually starting gathering because I think that would be nice because I have like kind of bookmarks
Mm-hmm.
and I'm transition that universe to Notion at the moment
Yeah.
because I think it would be nice to share and there's a lot of resources like there was like this website it was called Little Big Details I think it's called
Mm-hmm.
I'll share it with you and so you can put it on the YouTube kind of on the
Yeah.
comments uh, that it was really nice. They have like these examples of microcopy that they're really, really nice.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we'll share it with you so you can just put it on
Yeah.
the
Perfect.
description. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I know you're a fan of microcopy as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
And before we finish up, do you want to tell anything to our audience about a sale you have coming up or new services or anything like that?
Well, now I have the chance. I'm gonna launch a service now, tailored to digital professionals and service providers. I'm gonna just offer in a LinkedIn content audit
Mm-hmm.
just to check what's working and what's not and how to fix it. So the idea is just to revise the content from both the writing side of things, how the text is structured, and if it's screen ready or not, how if it's kind
Mm-hmm.
of the hooks and CTAs and the flow of the text, but also from the messaging kind of side of things. So if it's coherent, if it's telling the story, if it's actually aligning with the person, you can actually see the person in the content, and if it's
Mm-hmm.
talking to the right audience. So that's coming really soon, and I'm really
Oh,
excited about it.
that sounds really
Yeah.
useful.
Yeah.
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 So
Thanks so
yes,
much for coming and
thank
sharing
you.
all your knowledge and ideas and talking about these interesting topics with us. And if you want to chat about something else in the future, feel free to message us
Yes, that
again.
will be nice. A
Yeah,
part two.
definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you so much. And
Thank
yeah,
you.
everyone subscribe, like, comment, and
all the
if
good
you
stuff.
like this, watch this video here.
Or here.
Yeah, wherever it's going to be. I don't know.